I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Today we're going to be looking at the RunCam 2 action camera from RunCam, and we'll be talking about this camera specifically, but we're also going to talk more generally about the pros and cons of this style of camera. Let's get into it. It used to be that if you wanted an action camera for your quadcopter, you kind of had two choices. One was the Mobius style, which the RunCam is a descendant of, and that style laid flat like this on the top plate of the copter. And the other was the GoPro style, which sort of stood up like this and had the lens facing out that direction. The Mobius style, or the RunCam style, did have a real advantage in that it was a lot easier to mount. You just set it on the top plate and you put a battery strap around it and you were good to go. Whereas the GoPro style, I mean, yeah, you could put a battery strap around it, but it was more likely to sort of come loose. It was a little less secure. But the more that we started flying with up tilt, the less this style made sense. As you start to up tilt, this thing gets really unwieldy. It stands up a lot more, and it stands up more. Whereas the GoPro style, as you up tilt them, they actually lay down and lean back, and they present less of a profile to the wind. So that's an inherent disadvantage to this style of camera, and that's not going to change no matter how many technological advances they stuff into the camera in terms of image quality and sound quality and so on and so on and so on. And I think that's a big reason why we started to see pilots move away from this style of camera. Copters have gotten smaller and smaller, and it's just gotten harder and harder to mount this style of camera. So here's the QQ190 RTF. You can see it's got the top pod here. And this style of pod, if you go all the way back to the Krieger, which was, I think, one of the first, if not the first, of this style of copter with this kind of camera pod, it was designed to carry a Mobius, first and foremost. And you can see that we can get that on there, but it's really not... That's really not how it's intended to work. It's going to be visible within the view of the camera and so on. It's just not that we've gotten so small, it's hard to mount these. The RunCam 2 does have some specific advantages that are worth calling out. One is that it's got a battery door here, and that battery door protects the SD card. So the SD card is in there, and it's not going anywhere when the copter goes into a big tumble. Now that has been a big problem. I flew with the Xiaomi Yi camera for a long time. It was a big problem with the Xiaomi Yi was that you would lose the back plate and the SD card would sometimes come out. This sucker is on there pretty darn good. Another advantage of this camera compared even to the venerable GoPro Session, another advantage of this camera is that you've got a removable battery. Oh, just buy another one. All you need is 2 or 3 GoPro Sessions, and then you can shoot for as long as you want. I'm $300. Shut up. Now, the Yi also had a removable battery. Has a removable battery. I say had because I don't have a Yi anymore. It also has a removable battery. The problem with the Yi was that the battery would sometimes remove itself in a crash when you didn't intend it to. Now, I don't have a lot of flight experience with this RunCam, but I have to say my impression is pretty good. It goes in there, it's in there pretty securely, and then this sucker goes on. I can't promise you, well, it wouldn't be hard for it to be better than the Yi. Let's just say that. You push that on there. Yeah, that's pretty secure. What I should do is I should turn this sucker on and I should go throw it around, knock it around the room, and see if the battery comes loose. But at first glance, at least, it seems like they've done a good job there. The controls on the camera are pretty simple. So they match what most action cameras do these days. We've got the power, and then we've got the Wi-Fi button here. And of course the power blinks when you're recording, and it's solid when you're not recording. So if we turn the Wi-Fi on, we can take a look at the app that comes with this. And let me just, yeah, that flashing at you the whole time. There we go. Turn that over. We can take a look at the app, and camera. There we go. There's the camera. We can see that here are all the controls to control the camera. So we've got white balance adjustment. We've got exposure adjustment, exposure up and down. And we've got field of view adjustment. We can go from a wide field of view. And I should tell you, this is a new RunCam 2. You may think, oh, well, I've seen the RunCam 2. The RunCam 2 that you would buy right now, if you were to go buy this, has a 120-degree field of view. This one is a new one that they're going to release. I've been given a first look at it. It has a 170-degree field of view. So it has a much wider field of view than you would normally get from a RunCam. Here's a medium field of view and a narrow field of view. There's the wide field of view. It's the one you want for FPV, isn't it? Another thing that's notable about this camera is that if we go into the bitrate and resolution options, we've got a lot of options here that you wouldn't normally expect to see on an $80 action camera. So we can go all the way up to 1920 by 1440 at 30 FPS, 1920 by 1080 at 60 FPS, and 1280 by 720 at 120 FPS. That's pretty exciting. 120 FPS, even YouTube doesn't show videos at that frame rate, but if you like to do slow motion stuff, having a 120 FPS means you can slow down by 1/2 or even 1/4 amount and still get a decent frame rate. 640 by 480 at up to 240 FPS. Yikes. That's a lot of FPS. I really appreciate that RunCam has given you the option to go up to 30 megabits per second on this camera. My opinion is that for FPV, the typical bit rate that many of these cameras have of around 17 megabits per second is not sufficient. You get very poor video quality with fast motion at that bit rate. I think this camera does a pretty fair job at $70. Whereas if you compare it to, for example, the Mobius that I used to have a long time ago, it's not even a fair comparison, but if you were to compare it, that camera, the bit rate was so low that the video quality was terrible. And I've always kind of had a bad feeling about cheaper action cameras because of that. The Xiaomi Yi had the Waffle FPV script, which allowed you to use up to 35 megabits per second bit rate. So it really got the quality up there. And it doesn't matter how good a camera's image processing and quality is, if they have a terrible bit rate on the encoding, the image is going to look bad. Well, so the Xiaomi Yi could do that, and now I'm very pleased to see that that appears to be a trend. This camera does it out of the box, no messing around with the Waffle FPV script or any of that nonsense. You just get 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second at 30 megabits per second right out of the box. If you watch the comparison video that I did between the RunCam 2 and the Session 5, the one place that the RunCam 2 absolutely dropped its pants was on audio quality. The microphone is terrible. And the reason for that is, I think, that the microphone is, I think it says it right here in the front. And of course, you put the microphone in the front, you got wind noise rushing into the camera. It sounds awful, awful. Just unusably bad. If you do get this camera, I feel like you can get decent video out of it, especially if you're willing to go into the app and tweak the exposure and the color just a little bit. I think you could get decent video out of it, especially for the price. But I mean, maybe if you open it up and do surgery on it, you could get something decent out of the audio. But even, I've done all the fixes people talk about for the Yi with the foam and taking the sticker off. And basically, nothing made it great. And I think it's because of the mic placement. If we look at the GoPro Session, you can see that the mic hole, the mic opening is here in the back. And that puts it out of the wind. And it does mean it has some other effects. There's a little bit less high frequency. Maybe that's because there's some kind of seal in here for waterproof. I don't really know. But the gist of it is that it's in the back and it's down low and it's out of the wind. And as a result, you don't get the terrible, terrible wind noise crackling and breaking like you do with, well, the Xiaomi Yi famously. And this camera, if anything, I would say the RunCam is even worse than the Xiaomi Yi, frankly. Although, I don't know. They're both pretty bad. So that is the RunCam 2. This is the new one with the 170-degree field of view. I don't think you can buy this right now. I checked the website before I made this video. They're still showing the 120-degree field of view version, so keep an eye out for when this is going to release. And no, I don't know when it's going to release. They don't tell me things. They just send me products, and I look at them and go, oh, isn't that interesting? And I tell you about them. I don't know when it's coming out. Alrighty, folks. Well, I hope that's been educational. Thanks for watching, and happy flying.